Carwin.
Yeah.
Shane Carwin's fists are 2 of my fists.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. He was a preposterous man, and Schaub used to spar that dude.
Yeah.
And Shane Carwin was probably the single biggest one-punch, other than Ngannou, striker ever in the UFC. Shane Carwin knocked a lot. Look at that with Shane Carwin.
Oh, that's a big boy.
Dude, he was a house.
That's a big.
Shane Carwin is on the ground, face up, gasping for air, drenched in sweat, arms limp. Just a minute ago, he was destroying Brock Lesnar like a tank running over a tricycle. Now? Well, now Lesnar's on top, squeezing the life out of him. And there is nothing Carwin can do. This is the man who won 12 straight fights, all in the first round. Some didn't even know what hit them. One punch and it was lights out. No one had survived his power. Not one. But tonight, the one time that it mattered most, his gas tank quit. His lungs gave out. His body waved the white flag. Because Shane Carwin wasn't just powerful, he was engineered for destruction. 265 pounds of muscle, bone, and torque. Built like a Marvel superhero. Punches like wrecking balls. Nobody could take what he gave. But even machines break down. And Carwin's body didn't just fail him, it betrayed him. That night, the man who destroyed everyone got destroyed by himself. And to understand how we got to this cruel ending, we need to rewind to the beginning, back when Shane Carwin was a walking apocalypse. You know how some fighters just look like they were born to brawl? Shane Carwin looked like he was built in a lab. 6 feet 2 inches, 265 pounds, and somehow still shredded. Hands the size of lunch trays, shoulders like boulders. The guy didn't look like a heavyweight, he looked like a super weapon. But here's the twist. He wasn't just some meathead or a muscled up gym bro. Carwin actually had a mechanical engineering degree from the Colorado School of Mines, one of the toughest programs in the country. He also earned a degree in environmental technology for fun, just to keep busy. Most fighters finish college with a few black eyes and some student debt. Carwin finished with 2 degrees, a full-time engineering job, and a thirst for violence. He was a Division II NCAA wrestling champion. And not just any champ. He was a 2-time runner-up before finally taking gold in '99. And he wasn't just a wrestler either. He played football too. 2-time All-American. Played in the freaking Senior Bowl. Shane was built like a defensive end, but he moved like a linebacker and fought like a man who had never learned what fear was. Then came the moment that changed everything. At a small local show, Carwin made his amateur MMA debut. His first punch landed, and the guy collapsed like a folding chair. Everyone in the building just stared. And why wouldn't they? This was terrifying. It didn't take long before promoters stopped asking, can he fight? And started asking, how fast can we get him in the UFC? Because this wasn't some barroom brawler. This was a cerebral assassin, a heavyweight who could calculate your weak points and erase you in seconds. And once the UFC got their hands on him, they unleashed hell. When Shane Carwin stepped into the UFC, it was like watching a grizzly bear get dropped into a petting zoo. First up was Christian Wellish, May 24, 2008, UFC 84. Carwin's UFC debut lasted exactly 44 seconds. One punch was all it took. He sent Wellish's mouthpiece flying across the cage like a bottle rocket. People watching didn't even get to blink. Next was Neil Wayne, October 18, 2008, UFC 89. Now, this one went a little longer, 91 seconds, but only because Wayne tried to make it a scrap. He charged in swinging like a madman. Carwin calmly absorbed the chaos, countered with a bomb, and then just erased him. And then came the fight that made everyone sit up and say, wait, this guy might be next. Gabriel Gonzaga, March 7th, 2009, UFC 96. Gonzaga was no joke, a BJJ black belt, a former title challenger, the guy who famously head-kicked Crow Cop into the Shadow Realm. And early on, Gonzaga caught Carwin, rocked him with a combo. The engineer was in trouble. But trouble didn't last long. Carwin reset, bit down on his mouthpiece, and threw a short right hand from hell. Boom! Gonzaga hit the mat like a sack of bricks. Game over. 1 minute 9 seconds into round 1. 3 UFC fights, 3 first-round knockouts. Total combined cage time of less than 4 minutes. People were already comparing him to Mike Tyson. The UFC smelled pay-per-view gold, and they weren't wrong. He had power that made you afraid to blink. He didn't throw punches, he launched them. His opponents didn't lose, they vanished. Carwin was annihilating the competition. And at 11-0 with 11 first-round finishes, the UFC handed him the biggest opportunity of his life. A shot at Frank Mir for the interim heavyweight title. But no one knew something was quietly working against him. His own body. On the surface, Shane Carwin looked untouchable, but underneath all that power, his body was quietly falling apart. There is a dark side to being explosive. When you move like a cannon and hit like a truck, your joints, muscles, and nerves take the abuse, and eventually, they give out. Carwin was carrying 265 pounds of raw force on a 6'2" frame. Every punch torqued through his spine, every takedown rattled his neck. Years of wrestling didn't help either. His back had started barking long before he ever entered the UFC. By the time that he fought Gonzaga, the damage was already there. But he kept going. Fighters always do. In training camps, Carwin was getting cortisone shots just to make it to sparring. The pain was constant. His neck started going numb at times. His arms would tingle, and he didn't say much about it publicly. After all, he was a fighter, and fighters don't complain. Then came the Frank Mir fight. March 27, 2010, UFC 111. Mir was a legend, former champ, BJJ black belt, master of submissions. If anyone was going to survive Carwin's power, it was him. That was the theory. In practice, Carwin mauled him. He walked Mir down, clinched him, and threw the nastiest uppercuts you have ever seen. Mir dropped, Carwin pounced. And 3 minutes and 48 seconds later, the longest fight of his career at that point, Shane Carwin was the UFC interim heavyweight champion. He had just crushed Frank Mir. But the problem still persisted, because after that fight, his body didn't bounce back. The back pain got worse. The numbness spread. His neck was locking up. But the UFC needed him for the biggest fight in heavyweight history. Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar. UFC 116. Title unification. No time to rest, no time to heal. And when the promotion dangles a shot at the undisputed belt against the biggest name in the sport, you say yes. Even if your spine is screaming. Even if your body is telling you it's done. Carwin didn't listen. And that decision changed everything. July 3rd, 2010, UFC 116. The most anticipated heavyweight fight in years. Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar. 2 monsters, 2 champions, 1 belt. Carwin came in undefeated. 12 wins, 12 first-round finishes. Lesnar came in recovering from a brutal battle with diverticulitis. This was supposed to be Shane's crowning moment, and for 1 round it was. Carwin came out like a war machine. Seconds in, he cracked Lesnar with a right hand that sent him reeling. Then the floodgates opened. Punch after punch, elbows, hammer fists, knees. Brock turtled up. Ref Herb Dean hovered, ready to stop it. Everyone watching thought it was over. Joe Rogan was yelling. The crowd was losing it. Lesnar was getting mauled. But somehow, and to this day, no one understands how, Brock survived. Round 1 ended. And Carwin, He stood up, and you could see it. He was cooked, gassed, dead on his feet. He had never gone past the first round in his career. His body didn't know how. His muscles were pumped full of lactic acid. His lungs were on fire, and the back and neck issues weren't gone. They were screaming. Round 2 began, and Carwin was a shell of the man we saw 5 minutes earlier. Lesnar shot for a takedown. Carwin didn't have the legs to stop it. On the ground, Brock slowly worked into position and locked in an arm triangle choke. Carwin had no gas left to fight it. He tapped. And just like that, the nightmare was over.
Yeah, well, it looked like they were going to stop it. I mean, he was just covering up, and Shane Carwin was bombing on him. And props to referee Josh Rosenthal, because if it wasn't for Josh Rosenthal, someone easily could have pulled the trigger earlier.
Right.
There's a few guys that I wouldn't have trusted in that situation. But Josh saw that he was okay. He was going to get through it, and he saw that Shane's punches were coming slower and slower. And Shane, unfortunately, just blew his wad. He, he had an adrenaline dump, I'm sure. The excitement of the fact that he had the champ hurt on his back and that he was on top. And he's like, this is over. This fucking thing's over. And he's pounding him and pounding him and pounding him. And then all of a sudden, he's like, fuck, there's 2 minutes left to go in this round. And then he's got to keep going. And by the end of those 2 minutes, there was nothing left. He got back to his corner and literally could barely get up. His legs were barely walking. And he was fucked. He said his legs seized up, and he said he just went out there and he tried to do whatever he could, but his body just was not responding. He just completely adrenaline dumped and completely blew out all of his energy. But God, does he hit him hard before that? Holy Carwin can punch. He hits so hard. He's so big.
From the edge of victory to sudden defeat, the machine had broken down at the worst possible time. The world saw it happen in real time. The unstoppable force ran into the limits of human biology. And Brock Lesnar didn't beat Shane Carwin. Shane Carwin's body did. After UFC 116, Carwin disappeared for months. He needed surgery. His back was a mess. His neck wasn't cooperating. For a while, there was talk that he might retire right then and there. But he wasn't ready to let go. By early 2011, he was training again. And in June, he got the call. Junior Dos Santos, main event, UFC 131. This was Carwin's shot at redemption. But here's the thing. Dos Santos wasn't a journeyman heavyweight or a warm-up fight. He was fast, precise, and dangerous. And unlike Carwin's past victims, Junior didn't charge forward like a madman. He picked his shots, made you miss, made you pay. From the opening bell, we could see it. Shane wasn't the same. The power was still there, but the speed, the explosiveness, gone. Junior peppered him with jabs and uppercuts. Every time Carwin tried to unload, Junior slipped away and landed clean. By round 2, Carwin's face was a mess. Blood pouring, eyes swollen, mouth hanging open. But he kept going. He survived to the final bell, the first time a Shane Carwin fight ever went to a decision. But the result wasn't close. Unanimous win for Dos Santos. Carwin had gone from untouchable knockout machine to a battered, bloody survivor, and it was painful to watch. After the fight, Carwin needed more surgeries, more rehab, and more time away from the sport. He signed on to Coach Tough opposite Roy Nelson with a plan to fight him at the finale, but fate had other plans. In November of 2012, Carwin blew out his knee. Another surgery, another cancellation. And that was it. Carwin quietly stepped away. In May of 2013, he officially retired. His body had taken too much. The back, the neck, the knees, the gas tank, the machine was done. He had given MMA everything he had.
Wow, it seems like there are no interesting fights, and I'm not getting younger. Let me explain. Let me just lay my gloves down right here on, he did it on Reddit.
Wait, why is he done, though?
Thank you to each and every one of you. It's odd to be healthy and unable to compete, yet able to compete when so unhealthy. I guess we end with never knowing what could have been. Somber would be the best way to describe the emotion. Thank you all for the love, the insults, and the great times. I will sink back into the mode of being a Redditor, and my quest to become a mod here. I am also on the hunt for a large fedora. I'm like an 8.5 in hats. Seriously, thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being amazing and for making this sport amazing.
I thought he was retired.
When Shane Carwin retired, it didn't feel real at first. Fans expected a comeback, a last run, one more fight. But Carwin had nothing left to give. He had fought through back surgeries, neck problems, a blown-out knee. His entire body had turned into one long medical bill.
You know, Shane recently came out, Carwin, who was, you know, like a brother to me, and Shane's struggling, man. That's my main training partner. Despite having a degree in engineering from Colorado School of Mines, I've been unable to maintain adequate focus to hold down my engineering job. I face serious challenging, meaning basic.
Yeah.
Former world champ. I face serious challenges in meaning basic everyday expenses for food, shelter. How do you not just go, I get it, dude, boom.
Yeah.
10, 15 mil. Your troubles. Can we be human for a second? Could you just be a human being for a second and go, here, dude, here, man, we know. You don't have to do it publicly. Just as from human to human, man. This guy put his life on the line. I've seen it, dude. I was with him every step of the way from day one. He's such a good person. How can you not just go, here you go. Don't worry about it. That's pennies to these guys.
The same power that made him famous was the same force that ripped him apart. There was talk in 2016 of a comeback in Ryzen. Carwin even signed with them, said that he was ready, started training. But again, injury pulled him out before the debut. A boxing exhibition followed, one arm duct taped against Jason Ellis. Carwin knocked him out in round 2, just to remind everyone what kind of hammer he still had in that right hand. Then, nothing. The machine had shut down for good. But looking back, he didn't need more fights. He had done enough damage in the short time that he had. 12 wins, 8 by knockout, 4 by submission. 0 fights that went past round 1 until the end. For a brief, terrifying moment in MMA history, Shane Carwin was the most dangerous man on earth. And yet his career lasted barely 5 years. He never got to defend a title, never got his full prime, never saw what he could be if his body held together. Carwin was a walking contradiction, an engineer who built things for a living and destroyed people for sport, a wrestler who became a knockout king, a heavyweight who trained like a machine only to get betrayed by the very thing he built, his own body. Maybe that's the price of being designed for chaos. You burn brighter, you rise faster, you fall harder.
So you're talking about one of the smartest guys to ever fight in combat sports. When he fought Brock Lesnar, he was still some sort of engineer. I don't get it wrong, but he's an engineer for the city of Greeley, you know, making 6 figures. And Dana called him, you know, I'm not saying anything I don't think he has said, but Dana called him and was just like, hey man, you gotta quit your job. Like, it's such a bad look. We're doing the countdown show and you're working a full-time job. And Shane was like, absolutely not. And he's like, what if we paid you this amount of money? He's like, no, man. Because fighting's so short-sighted. It's so, the career's so short. Like, this is how I, you know, insurance for my kids and for my wife, and it's how I pay the bills. And he's like, he refused to. Because of the way that we trained, because we were meatheads, we didn't know. You know, even the coaches, you know, we'd spar twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, like all out. And because of that, you know, Shane, he can't even keep a job, dude.
It's that bad right now?
Yeah, he went from being a engineer to he can't be a bouncer at a.
And in the end, Shane Carwin gave MMA something it doesn't see very often. Fear. Not media buzz, but real, actual fear. Opponents walked into that cage knowing they were about to get hurt fast and bad. And once he was gone, there was no one like him again.